So let's start today's mega event of the first joint collaboration of INC, IAH, International Association of Hydrogeologists in the Indian National Chapter, and IIT Gandhinagar. I am sure that this is just a good beginning, or which will definitely go long. So of course, before, as we know that this is the World Water Day celebration, and while I was going, this is just, the few occasions short to 30 years, and then this will complete its 30th edition. But I was going through the theme, and this year theme is valuing water. Of course, it is a very pertinent, but otherwise also it has been giving really, really nice themes like 2020 water and climate change, 26 to 2019 water and jobs, why wastewater and nature of water, and leaving no one behind. These are some of the favorites of the theme, which has been recently given. So on this very day, it was very important that a center like Kiran Patel and one of the largest groundwater organization come together and bring some really, really good speaker. And so with this small introduction of today's event, I would like to invite Professor Bimal Misra, who is the coordinator of Kiran Patel Center for Sustainability, who is co-hosting it with IAH INC. He's an associate professor at both Department of Civil Engineering and Discipline of Earth Sciences. And so Bimal, we would be very happy to see you also if you switch on video and give some the introduction about about KPCSD.
Okay, so thank you, Professor Manish. I am sorry I won't be able to switch my video on because I will have to change a lot of settings and that may take some time. So I'll try to say just few words and then I think the activity, the presentation must start. So first of all, I would like to welcome everybody to this exciting event, all eminent speakers, participants, panel members, as well as students. And today is the World Water Day. You know, every year it comes once and goes away, right? But water, the importance of water must be felt year round every day, because country like India, you know, water security is of utmost important because we have such a vast agriculture and that needs a lot of water to grow food and support our population or growing population. So I think World Water Day on this 22nd March, it also falls at a very right time because, you know, water crisis in India starts mostly after World Water Day. So you'll see that we will hit soon April and then May, and April, May, this summer season is the, you know, prominent season when we see that people are running out of drinking water, or tankers are in the business to supply water in cities and so on and so forth, or our surface water bodies in villages get dried up during this time of a year. So this again reminds us that we should be ready to face the challenge in coming days before we hit the summer monsoon, which is the supply of our water system, both surface as well as, I would say, groundwater system, at least for unconfined aquifers, because we get them recharged once again, and then we have water available in reservoirs and lakes and rivers. So this is very important time of a year for water conservation, and World Water Day should remind all of us that we should become water efficient. Now, having said that, I will just introduce in a few sentences the Kiran Patel Center of Sustainable Development that we have at Indian Institute of Technology, Gandhinagar. So the center was established about 3 years back with a generous support from Dr. Kiran Patel, who is based in Florida. And the vision or mission of the center is that we should do high quality research. We should also do training, capacity building, and outreach programs to increase awareness in or do the research that is that can create and make impact in the area of water, climate change, public health, energy systems, renewable energy. So center has number of faculty members affiliated. I am also one of them, and we are trying to do a lot of things. Like we have been able to run the seminar during the lockdown or during the COVID period, and Dr. Dipankar Saha was one of the first among the first speakers. So I mean, I am glad that your organization, Dr. Saha, and all other eminent speakers has decided to participate with our center and on this very important day, and decided to sort of have this activity where we have such a great pool of eminent speakers who will, I mean, throw their thoughts on water and water conservation today. So once again, I would like to welcome on behalf of Kiran Patel Center of Sustainable Development, and I look forward to this exciting event. Thank you very much, and welcome everybody.
Thank you, Bimal. That was, yeah, it is really important that not only that day. Okay, so today is now coming to the special, I mean, the core program. I would like to handle hand over this event to Dr. Dipankar Saha with a little bit introduction to him. And then, of course, he will moderate the session of these speakers and a kind of the program, and then again I will get back to you. So about about Dr. Dipankar Saha, he is I mean a secretary. So the first of all, right now he is the secretary of INC IAH, and with that capacity, he is going to moderate all this event. But he has been a very good scholar of CGWB who could publish also, apart giving the services to the organization. He was the member secretary for CGWA, that is the Central Groundwater Authority. And he has the first recipient of National Geoscience Award as an individual capacity. Also, he was the first recipient of the Groundwater Excellence Award. He is the alumni of the ISM Dhanbad, who is now IIT Dhanbad. And he has been trained from JICA, also AIT Bangkok, and so on and so forth. He has been the editor for JES and the consultant to IWMI Colombo. And recently he has been inducted to the to monitor Atal Bhujal Yojana of Jal Shakti Ministry. With this, I would like to invite Dr. Saha. I hope he has no any technical snag to the conduct or to moderate this talk or this event.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I got disconnected for some time.
So, yeah, I was just telling about you also, so you didn't miss much.
Okay. Thank you. You see, welcome all the participants and all the distinguished panelists. Sri V.K. Madhavan, Chief Executive of WaterAid, and our Dr. Sp Sinara is a very illustrious career in groundwater in India, formerly with Central Groundwater Board. And Dr. D.C. Singhal, Professor D.C. Singhal, you Manish, and Professor Bimal Misra, and all distinguished participants. Many of you are a member of Indian National Chapter of International Association of Hydrogeologists, and maybe from Gandhinagar IIT and throughout India, maybe from outside also. Welcome you all. A few words about the International Association of Hydrogeologists Indian Chapter. You know, it's a very big body of, you can say the largest body of the groundwater professionals, scientists, researchers, policymakers in the entire world, and its headquarters is in UK. And presently, it is in the national chapter of India is one of the largest chapter. The International Association of Hydrogeologists has got branches in more than 160 countries. So it is spanning all over the globe. And Indian chapter is one of the strongest chapter of International Association of Hydrogeologists. Professor D.C. Singhal is the president of the chapter. I am secretary. Professor Sinha is vice president, and we have 5 EC members, executive council members and treasurers. It was established in 1984 in India, and are conducting a lot of activities in India, like regularly we are organizing seminars, symposiums. Then we confer award to the for the excellence in groundwater research, as well as for the professionals, as well as the best paper award. So a lot of award INCIH gives. And then we have recently started National Groundwater Lecture Series, where we invite the you can say best persons in groundwater and water to come and deliver lectures. Then we have recently started a very important e-journal of geohydrology. It's an online journal, and 2 issues are already out, and 3rd issue is out. Then we regularly issue e-newsletter. So a lot of activities. And this time we are organizing the World Water Day with in collaboration with the IIT Gandhinagar, and we have very 2 distinguished speakers. And you all know about the World Water Day. It was started in 22nd March 1992, long back. Its focus is on importance of fresh water, and the focusing on process of sustainable management of freshwater resources. And with this brief introduction, I will like to invite first Professor D.C. Singhal to give the welcome address on behalf of INCIH and IIT Gandhinagar. Professor Singhal, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saha, for a nice introduction. And just since the brief introduction has already been given about this World Water Day, so I am just happy to welcome the honorable guests, especially Shri Madhavan ji and Dr. Sp Sinha Ray, on behalf of Indian chapter of International Association of Hydrogeologists, and also all the other dignitaries present on the dais, so-called dais. So now this IEH is comprised of a large number of students and the researchers throughout India, as you know, and as Dr. Saha has told. Now, on the occasion of the World Water Day, which fell today on March 22, and it is celebrated every year. This was originally started as a UN Observance Day, and mainly to create awareness of the global global water crisis. And the main focus of the celebration is to support the achievement of Sustainable Development Goal 6. Goal 6 out of other 11 goals, it is on clean water and sanitation. And for this year, the main focus is clean water and sanitation for all by 2030. So the theme of World Water Day is valuing water. And this focus will extend beyond the issues of pricing to include the environmental, social, and cultural values people place on water. Just for example, if I quote a recent tweet, a typical pair of jeans takes 10,000 liters of water to produce. And this is equal to what a person drinks in 10 years. So that is the kind of wastage which is generated due to the use of jeans widely. So buying sustainably sourced products, it can have a huge environmental impact. And the moral of the story is shop sustainably. This is, of course, as per the quote given by UN Water. So on March 22, every year, people and organizations mark World Water Day by taking actions to tackle the water crisis. The main actors in this program are UN program on international basis. On national basis, the main actors are supposed to be the government agencies like Ministry of Water Resources, Government of India. In other agencies which are included in this are Central Water Commission, Central Groundwater Board, and National Water Development Agency, and so on. And then there are many other state departments which deal with water. However, there are some agencies in private sector also, which as a part of their CSR activities, they support this kind of program. But the people's participation, I would say, seems to be on a minimal side. That is my perception about it. And there is a need to increase this. And in fact, that formally, we are supposed to take a pledge on World Water Day to conserve water, to waste little or minimum of water. So that is the kind of pledge. I do not want to, of course, reiterate the exact wording of the pledge. So people participation has to increase about in the World Water Day activity. Now, government agencies in India mostly celebrate this day by organizing seminars and conferences. I remember a few years back, our water resource minister, Uma Bharti, and later on Gadkari ji, they have been presiding over the functions in which Jal Manthan was organized on the World Water Day. So, as you are aware, the celebration of World Water Day during this year has been organized in coordination with IIT Gandhinagar, for which I am highly grateful to the administration and to the Kiran Patel Center. And the program includes lectures by Dr. Sp Sinha Ray, who is the retired member of Central Groundwater Board, and this will be followed by a lecture by Shri V.K. Madhavan, who is the CEO of WaterAid in India. With these words, I welcome all the guests and audience to this virtual function. Again, I now request Dr. Dipankar Saha, Secretary, INCIEH, to kindly take over and get the latest e-newsletter of INCIEH released. This is the third issue of e-newsletter which has to be released today. So I'll over to Dr. Dipankar Saha, please. Thank you.
This is the e-newsletter of Indian National Chapter of International Association of Hydrogeologists. It regularly comes out and it contains all the relevant information as far as possible about groundwater, various type of information, latest development, and all information about the seminar and symposium that is going to be held in near future around the globe. And this is the just a fourth issue of the newly constituted committee, 2019-21. And it starts with obituary to Dr. D.K. Chadda, a very illustrious hydrogeologist who was chairman Central Groundwater Board, chairman Central Groundwater Authority. He was president of INCIAH, as well as very recently he was elected as vice president of Asia of the International Association of Hydrogeologists, a very prestigious post. But it's very unfortunate that he suddenly passed away. And a lifetime achievement award has been given posthumously to Dr. D.K. Chadda. That information is given. Then 2019 award winners, their names are there, photographs are there. This has been given a bit late because of the corona pandemic situation. Ranjan Sinha, Sri Ranjan Sinha, he is one of the winners. Then Professor Rashid Umar, Professor M.K. Jha from Kharagpur IIT, Professor Rashid Umar is from Aligarh Muslim University, Ranjan Sinha is from Korean Energy, and then Ajit Kumar Behera, who got award for the best paper. He is from BIT Sindri. Then about the seminar we have recently organized on 27th and 28th of February, a 2-day seminar where we discussed all nitty-gritty about the technical, different various technical and socio-economic issues related to groundwater, some information about that and some articles. And again, the INC, IH members who are awarded PhD during this year, they have been, their name and their photographs and their achievement has also been mentioned. One is Dr. Suresh Kumar, and then the achievement of INC, IH members, different publication, books that has come up. So, and different paper cuttings highlighting the achievements of the members of the Indian National Committee or National Chapter of International Association of Hydrogeologists. So this is our latest newsletter and this is released. Thanks to all. And now I will invite, there are two eminent speakers, you know. First, I would like to invite Dr. Sp Sinara. Before I invite him, I thought that we'll tell you about him. He is a very famous as a groundwater practitioner in India. He has got his MSc and PhD from Jadavpur University in PhD in 1974. He joined in Geological Survey of India in 1966, and he served in different parts of India and in Central Groundwater Board. He was joined from Geological Survey of India to Central Groundwater Board. He retired as member SML from Central Groundwater Board in 2002. He has more than 50 years of extensive experience in groundwater exploration, development and management. And by virtue of his long association with the apex body of the country in groundwater, that is Central Groundwater Board, he acquired a very rich experience on this subject. Beside having vast knowledge about the subject within the country, he has also gained knowledge and working experience from different countries like Algeria, Bangladesh, USA, Korea, and Zimbabwe. And he has published many, many papers and authored many reports of Central Groundwater Board. He attended the training on groundwater resource development organized by Overseas Internal Technical Cooperation Agency, Japan, Tokyo, and again with the US Geological Survey in 1992. At present, he is working as a chairman, Fluoride Task Force, West Bengal, as well as member Arsenic Task Force, West Bengal government, and president emeritus of Center for Groundwater Studies, a very prestigious think tank and NGO in located at Kolkata and working on water issues, especially on groundwater. And with these few words about him, I now invite Dr. Sp Sinara to deliver his talk.
Good afternoon. Today, I am supposed to speak on the significant groundwater quality issues in South Asia with remedial options. Groundwater contamination is a serious and widespread problem. See, about quarter of the 300 billion cubic meter of Indus, Ganges and Brahmaputra basin is saline. About 40% of groundwater contaminated by arsenic. If we go state by state, excess fluoride concentration is also available in Fareb, Kandahar, Kabul area. If we go to Bangladesh, 80% of the tube wells with shallow aquifers of major river basin of southern and the coastal aquifers have higher arsenic content. Fluoride content here is comparatively less, 0.01 to 0.71 milligram. In India, the groundwater in large parts of North Indian alluvial aquifer is anoxic and enriched with elevated arsenic concentration. Almost in 86 districts in India has been identified with high arsenic. High fluoride content mostly in crystalline aquifers in parts of 19 states of India we have found. Seawater intrusion resulting aquifer salinization in the aquifers. Adjoining Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea, we get seawater intrusion and highly saline groundwater in inland aquifers of several states are also found. So salinity both inland and near the coastal area is quite prevalent in the Indian subcontinent. In Nepal, arsenic concentration is quite high in densely populated southern region of the country, especially the Terai area. In Pakistan, northwestern frontier province affected by high groundwater salinity. Most of the groundwater in the Indus River basin, mostly in Punjab and Sindh province, are arsenic enriched. High amount of dissolved fluoride in Punjab, Sindh, and Balochistan area occurs. Punjab and Sindh, recent alluvial aquifer of Indus basin, have also high salinity. Go to Sri Lanka, we find seawater intrusion in coastal region resulting high salinity in groundwater almost throughout the coastal area. However, fluoride contamination in some of the dry zones in the central part, that is the metamorphic and hard rock region of Sri Lanka, we find the fluoride contamination. Now, this gives a panoramic view of how this fluoride, arsenic, and salinity has almost plagued the groundwater situation in the South Asia. Removal of pollutants from groundwater by in situ and ex situ treatment techniques. These technologies can be used for large, medium, and small scale. Ex situ treatment involves different processes like adsorption, ion exchange, membrane processes such as filtration, microfiltration, nanofiltration, ultrafiltration. Again, utilization of nanotechnology and electrokinetic treatment technology are quite common. In the treatment technology, most notorious part is the sludge management. The amount of sludge that comes out of the treatment that needs to be properly treated. Otherwise, that sludge again goes into the whole system. These are the arsenic treatment plant. These are the defluoridation units. Now, in order to combat the whole thing, what should be the effective policies? We must consider institutional and cultural environment of the country, interrelationship of quantity and quality of groundwater, financial viability of any proposed measures, acceptability of the measures to society. This is very important, that society should accept the technologies. Then the policy development should include public, government agencies, and other stakeholders potentially affected. In fact, an integrated approach using key measures like risk and vulnerable assessment, land use, planning and management, regulatory measures, market mechanism, education, and awareness are the key words for this thing. Now, what are the remedial steps we should follow, adapt to address the groundwater quality? To generate reliable and accurate information about water quality. This is by far the most important policy that we must have data collected, has to be collected, and data bank has to be established. That is the primary step. The second thing is institutional issues for policy framing. A policy task force involving key institutions of environment, health, agriculture, industry, water resource, and local government should be set up, and there should be one lead agency to coordinate the policy and strategy for groundwater protection and management. Now, most valuable thing in the whole gamut is the capacity building. Interdisciplinary training is required to ensure necessary competence and skill to resolve groundwater issues. Commonly based water quality monitoring may yield better results. Community, that is the key factor. If community-based quality monitoring we do, then probably we can bring more areas under monitoring. Education of the local people in both aspects of hygiene and resource availability, quality-wise, shall improve public health. Then comes very tricky thing, that is the legislative framework. Abstraction rates of water may have a fundamental influence on groundwater quality. So, its control requires a sound legal basis and good environment. Then, unless we have the progressive monitoring system, then we'll not be able to progress further. Groundwater quality monitoring is by far very important thing. It includes determination of background groundwater quality, determination of permit compliance, detection of groundwater contamination, and characterization of effectiveness of the corrective action. It also includes variability both in vertical and horizontal gradient, time or volume of pumping, sample collection procedure, and data management procedure. Each step has to have effective monitoring system. Then tools for groundwater quality protection, wellhead protection plans, vulnerability assessment, code of practice, economic instrument, education, community awareness, and involvement that are very, very crucial for effective remedial measures. Price mechanism, incentives, and stringent application of polluter page may yield good results. And again, I am emphasizing on the polluter page. They have to be made responsible for paying the cost of the groundwater quality protection. Then we'll have to have a better water resource management, effective water balance by controlling discharge and recharge relationship, rainwater harvesting, especially in small water sets and mini water supply scheme, should be the integral part of the overall groundwater quality control strategies. And we should not fix responsibility only on groundwater resource in this case. Probably the total water resource management that will bring better results. Then comes the choice of technology. There are areas where we are bound to use the various treatment technology to deacidify or to defluoride or to desalinize the water to make it safe water for drinking for the people. But when we choose it, we must give importance to most user-friendly technically sound, economically viable technology in combating both higher and lower levels of contamination. But this also should include low-cost filters at household level to be decided after evaluation of most suitable intervention to various contaminants. UNICEF in India has developed this type of low-cost filters and which are extensively being used in West Bengal. Then comes the social aspect. You know, we are doing the whole remedial measures for the people. Unless we bring them together in the whole process, probably technology alone will not be able to solve the problem. That is why consultation and participation is very important thing in the remedial measures. Continuous information gathering and educating the stakeholders of knowledge, attitude, and practices, which will help establishing trust among the stakeholders. Transparency of information dissemination, participation on ongoing process of information gathering, dialogue and negotiation can ensure ownership of the process by all involved. In West Bengal, in India, the participation and consulting with the people for whom the remedial measures have been prescribed has become an integral part of the project, and unless they come together, they help, the scheme will not be drawn up. Then comes the mass awareness and social empowerment. IC material to be suitably tailored to create sufficient awareness among the rural and urban communities, highlighting precautionary signals related to disease like arsenicosis, fluorosis, etc. Suitable mechanism of training by expert groups, and thereafter trained personnel to rural and urban beneficiaries will improve the situation in much better way. Now, I am showing this thing only to have a glimpse on what happens if we ingest high arsenic groundwater, high fluoride groundwater, the health hazards associated with that. And as you said, that the wash awareness, especially among the ladies, has become the integral process of the social mobilization. Even the treated water through the vending activities, they are being shifted from one place to another. I understand Mr. Asian Dave is present in this discussion. I am very happy to inform you that this initiative was taken by his leadership on behalf of UNICEF. Next. Now, finally comes the issues of social convergence. You need to address the issues of monitoring and intervention jointly by involving NGOs, government agencies, and other stakeholders. Community awareness needs to be built up in the context of social convergence by upgrading existing laboratory facilities at local level. So, unless at the grassroots level we develop the strategies, we make the social convergence, we make them aware about the problem of the drinking this high arsenic, high fluoride water, it is not possible to advance further. Otherwise, what will happen? The technological advances will be there, but then after some time, it will become white elephants. Next. Finally, at this age, I will only suggest that give value to water. It will give more value to your life and environment. Thank you.
And next presenter will be Mr. V.K. Madhavan. We are all eagerly waiting for your talk. V.K. Madhavan is, I would say, one of the most experienced and well-informed and widely worked, particularly in rural India, on water issues and groundwater issues. Since May 2016, Madhavan has been the Chief Executive of WaterAid India. I would say one of the largest organizations, think tanks, NGO working in the domain of water. In the past 3 decades, Madhavan has worked on an integrated rural development, community health, primary education, and investing in young people and particularly adolescent girls, natural resources management, community forestry, watershed management, recharge conservation, drinking water, and on-farm and off-farm livelihood. He has spent 15 years of the last 3 decades living and working in rural India, first in the desert district of northwestern Rajasthan, and then in different parts of India. And he is one of the, I would say, rare player in the water sector who has got the feeling of the government policies, how the government work, because he is in many such committees also, and as well as he is working deeply into the civil society sector and in one of the most front-runner NGO in India. So now I request Sri V.K. Madhavan to take over. The dais is yours. Please, Madhavan.
Thank you, Dipankar. I wish to thank the International Chapter of the International Association of Hydrogeologists, the Kiran C. Patel Center for Sustainable Development, and IIT Gandhinagar. It's rather brave of you to invite me to speak to such an august body. I approach this invitation with some trepidation for a simple reason that it is quite challenging for a student of international politics to be asked to speak on groundwater to the foremost experts of groundwater in this country. If there was anyone in this audience who's technically ill-qualified to talk about groundwater, then it is possibly me. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to start off with first talking about a quick background on my own interest and engagement with groundwater, and then to go on to talk about why I believe that groundwater is both invisible as well as ignored, and what we need to do to fix this issue. I'm going to start off with talking about my own understanding and exposure to issues around groundwater. And I started working in Western Rajasthan in the early part of the 90s. At that point of time, the emphasis was on traditional water harvesting structures, simply because, sorry? Our emphasis was on being able to harvest very scarce amounts of rainfall. And so the focus was on traditional water harvesting structures. But we also had to contend with the Indira Gandhi Nehar Pariyojana, one of the largest canal irrigation systems in Asia, and the implication of introducing canal-based irrigation in hard pan areas. And so in some sense, the first introduction to the implications of, or the interplay between surface water and geology was in looking at areas with waterlogging, areas with salinity along the Indira Gandhi Nehar Pariyojana. And then at a later stage, I worked in the Kumaon region of the Central Himalayas, where the organization I was working with was involved in natural resource management, in watershed development, in community forestry. And we started to discover that there were limitations of the watershed approach. This traditional approach of treating from the ridge to the valley, we found that even where the quality of the interventions in terms of the regeneration of a wide variety of species, not just forests, but even shrubs, grasses, where water infiltration had gone up, we didn't find necessarily a proportionate increase in discharge either in springs or in streams in the valley. And we started to question as to what was it that we were doing incorrectly, that despite good quality information on the surface, we were not able to find the resultant impact in terms of an increase in flow of either springs or streams at the base of valleys. We then started to look at treatment of streams. And I remember walking down a stream, coming down from the ridge down to the base. And while we were coming down, we were witnessing treatment. There were both civil engineering measures, there was soil water conservation efforts, and there was vegetative treatment on either side of the stream. And at a certain point, we found that on one side, the greenery continued along one side of the stream, but in another, and at a certain point, the greenery was moving perpendicular to the slope. And I remember sitting down there and having a conversation with our colleagues to try and understand why is it that the greenery is not following the direction of the slope and is very clearly moving away from the direction of the slope of the stream. And we realized that we actually had very poor understanding of how water behaved when it went underground. And we had very little understanding of subsurface flows of groundwater, particularly in the mountains. And that led to an inquiry where we then sought assistance. Aquadam in Pune was forthcoming in training our colleagues to understand groundwater, to understand geology in the Kumaon region. And we started to look at trying to treat springs. And it's now been 15 years since we initiated this work, and we have now data going back 15 years, which clearly reveals that understanding the geology of the area, trying to understand subsurface flows, could lead to identification of the unique recharge zones of springs and to maximize infiltration efforts in those areas rather than to merely adopt a ridge to valley approach. It became very clear that in the context of the Himalayas, at least, what you needed was a valley to valley approach rather than a mere ridge to valley approach. Now, if we were to move on, and I'd quickly talk about the water crisis in India, which probably all of you are more familiar with than anyone else in this country. And if we look at water availability, per capita availability of water, there's been a decline of almost 70% since 1951. It is predicted to further decrease. So we're looking at a decline per capita availability of water down from 5,200 meter cube in 1951 to potentially 1401 meter cube in 2025, making India water stressed. If you look at the data that the Composite Water Management Index brought out by NITI Aayog in 2018 and 2019 revealed, 600 million Indians face high to extreme water stress. 163 million in 2019 were without access to clean water in homes. 54% of wells had declining water levels. And in 12 river basins, almost 820 million people were living in 12 river basins where the per capita availability of water was either equal to or less than the threshold for water scarcity. It was estimated in the Composite Water Management Index that almost 40% of our population would have no access to drinking water by 2030 if we didn't do anything about it. And by 2030, the water demand would be twice the available supply, leading to a potential loss of 6% to gross domestic product. The fact that we were ranked 120 out of 122 countries in the Water Quality Index is not surprising, given the presentation that was made by Dr. Sinha Ray just prior to this, and the fact that almost 70% of our water sources are contaminated. Dr. Sinha Ray talked about chemical contamination, in addition to fluoride, nitrate, arsenic, iron, heavy metals. I mean, the National Aquifer Management Initiative for Delhi, for example, reveals high contents of fluoride. Studies of the water in the Ganga and studies that we have done in the Malwa region of MP suggest a very high increase in nitrates in groundwater. If we were to look at the fact that we are the largest extractor of groundwater anywhere in the world, and we extract more groundwater than both China and the US put together. You can add Pakistan for good measure, but we're still the largest extractor of groundwater anywhere in the world. Now, of the available groundwater, 89% is used by the irrigation sector, and the remaining 11% by either for domestic use or industrial use. Almost 50% of our urban water requirements are met by groundwater, and 85% of our rural water requirements by groundwater. The government's ambition, so we have the Jal Jeevan Mission, which seeks to ensure that every household in India will have access to safe drinking water through a functional household tap connection by 2024. It is the most ambitious and audacious program of its kind globally. But if we were to look at drinking water schemes historically in India, the two most important reasons why drinking water schemes fail are, one, either because of poor management of the drinking water schemes, or because the source of water itself is not sustainable. Now, as we are embarking on this ambitious program to ensure that every household has access to safe drinking water by 2024, we should sit back and also wonder about the technical capacity to actually ensure that the source of water that's going to be piped into every household is actually sustainable or not. We have the Atal Bhujal Yojana. We also have Jal Shakti Abhiyan, which was initiated in 2019, is likely to be repeated again this year. Now, when we look at the fact that we're looking at water conservation at a national level, it is quite clear with the experience of Jal Shakti Abhiyan that there's been an increase in water storage using existing surface water bodies to improve the conservation of water. It is also clear that soil moisture levels have gone up. But has this necessarily led to recharge? Is not something that we're very certain about. Is it, given the fact that if it doesn't contribute to recharge, is this the most effective way? Is the cost benefit justifiable? If the objective were to recharge aquifers, is this the best way to do it? We also have the effort to try and increase water use efficiency in agriculture through more crop per drop. Now, if you were to look at some of the practical considerations that we're plagued with, if you look at the state capacity, increasingly we're finding that groundwater departments at a state level are either non-existent or are significantly being emasculated by limited capacity as well as budgets. If we were to look at the public health engineering departments, which are responsible for drinking water provision, even in a rural context, we find that if at all they have anyone with an understanding of groundwater, it is largely their roles are limited to advising the department on where bores can be sunk, to help in preparing detailed project reports for new sources of drinking water which use groundwater. So in some sense, we find that the capacity at a state level, either in the public health engineering department or in the state groundwater boards, is significantly diminished to be able to rise and address this challenge of groundwater scarcity. If we were to look at the urban scenario, it's not any better. Given the fact that 50% of our domestic requirements are met by groundwater, if you were to look at, for example, the Delhi Jal Board or the Bangalore Metropolitan Water Supply and Sewerage Board, you'd be hard-pressed to find hydrogeologists who are actually able to advise these utilities on how to use groundwater effectively or what you need to do to recharge groundwater in an urban context. So quite clearly, there's a huge gap in capacity, in understanding, and the commensurate investment, despite the fact that we are excessively dependent on groundwater. It is quite clear increasingly that the understanding of the interplay between surface and groundwater tends to be limited. And largely, we are still seeing this as something that can be driven by civil engineers on their own. Now, if we were to look at some of the largest elephants in the room, the first is the agriculture conundrum, the fact that almost 90% of our groundwater is used by agriculture. Well, we have not been able to promote the cultivation of crops in areas that are ecologically suitable for them. So you will have areas with significant water availability where we're not able to promote paddy cultivation, whereas there are other areas that are not ecologically suitable where we're dependent on groundwater and cultivating crops like sugarcane or paddy. But there is also the problem of getting the pricing issue right, to make sure that people have the right incentives to cultivate the right crops in the right ecology. And so we need to address the issue of getting the pricing mechanism right, also to look at markets for crops that could be cultivated, which actually consume less water. There has in fact been a accompanying failure of agricultural extension, and therefore we find that efforts at improving water use efficiency continue to languish by and large across the country. There's also the problem around electricity, the irregularity, the lack of variability of assurance in availability of agriculture leads to excessive use of water in flow irrigation systems particularly. There's also the problem of subsidies related to this. And we have by and large found that participatory groundwater management has not really captured the imagination of communities all over the country. If you were to look at the issue of the value of water, we find that we tend to continue to subsidize water, and therefore the incentives for people to either conserve water or to use it judiciously do not exist, simply because no citizen is aware of the true value of water. Effectively, there are also then problems around who owns groundwater. We are probably one of the few countries in the world where if you own a piece of land and can afford to sink a bore well, you can continue to extract groundwater for your own domestic use or for use in agriculture with very little regulation. There have now been attempts in the recent past by the National Green Tribunal or by the new guidelines or notified by Central Groundwater Authority to try and regulate this, particularly for large institutions, industry, but agriculture and domestic use still seems to be missing from this. Finally, we have the problem of the invisibility of groundwater. And the problem is that by virtue of the fact that we have such an important resource that is invisible, it tends to be ignored by everyone, policymakers, users, consumers, and citizens alike. Now, if we were to address the issue of invisibility, we need to recognize it's a highly technical domain. And while it is a highly technical domain, we need to try and get citizens to understand its importance and to be able to relate to the issue. And therefore, there is a desperate need to start to demystify the science around groundwater, to make an understanding of groundwater accessible to laypersons like me, who do not have an understanding or orientation of groundwater, for us to be able to understand what is it that we can do as citizens to be able to ensure that groundwater is treated better. And therefore, we need to have the ability of being able to communicate simply complex issues around groundwater, to be able to carry people and citizens along with us. We also are going to require new allies, new collaborators, whether it's civil society organizations like ours, whether it's industry, whether it is resident welfare associations. Quite clearly, business as usual cannot work anymore. And if we have to ensure that there is an appreciation of the importance of groundwater in an ability to use it judiciously, and more importantly, to conserve and make sure that this resource is available for generations to follow, we will have to find new partnerships and collaborations to take this forward. How could we avert this crisis? One, we will need different strategies for shallow aquifers and different strategies for deep aquifers. There is a broad understanding that it will take millennia potentially to be able to recharge deep aquifers, but can we start with shallow aquifers? Can we look at what is it that can be done to do this? Now we have the National Aquifer Management Mapping Program, but there's a need for assistance in interpreting the outputs of NACMAP, or being able to convert it into simple outputs and tools that laypersons can actually use in understanding where their aquifers are, where the potential recharge zones for the aquifers are. If as a beginning, if the Indian chapter of the International Association of Hydrologists could start to help in identifying where are the recharge zones, particularly in districts with a high degree of water stress or vulnerability, it could potentially lead to action to at least try and ensure that we are maximizing infiltration in the recharge zones and not doing it blindly. Finally, can we create a cadre of barefoot hydrogeologists who can work with experts such as you to try and ensure that we're able to avert this crisis? Finally, as I stop, I believe that the problem is not merely a battle for groundwater and water safety and security. It's a battle for imagination. It's a battle for winning the minds of people and for creating the visibility of an invisible resource, groundwater. Thank you.